Well, it's 7 o'clock right now. So I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for July 12th, 2022 to order. And the first item, Mark, definitely is the roll call.
Okay, Mayor Brar.
Yeah.
Randy Bruce.
Here.
Gretchen Erdman Hermans.
Here.
Chris Harp.
Here.
Mike Slavish.
Here.
And Dan Ramsey and John Schaefer have indicated they would not be present tonight. So there's 5 present, along with Daphne Shu and myself as staff.
Okay, thank you. So now we want to welcome a new Plan Commission member, that's Chris Harp, and he's going to tell us something about himself, all the great things that he did over the years. Right now he's with Middleton. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
All right, my name is Chris Harp. I'm an architect by training and background. Mostly my role has been project leadership, project management for very large to very small projects, mostly lab facilities, manufacturing facilities. Before Mead and Hunt, I worked at Flat Architects for over 21 years, and I've been at Mead and Hunt almost 5 years, and had some other experience even before that in Milwaukee, and in the Madison area with some other firms. I got 2 grown daughters. One lives in Minneapolis, and one I just helped move down to Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm a married man of about 36 years. And welcome, and thanks for having me on the Plan Commission.
Wow, so just to let you know that his last project was $1 billion in value. So you can see we will have big projects coming here too. So welcome, Chris, and thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item is the public hearing. It's already 7 o'clock. This is the request for conditional use permit for Tricky Foods and Miggy's Bakes at 1914 and 1918 Mayflower Drive. Is there anyone who wants to speak either in favor or against it? Mark will tell you that we got one email letter supporting it.
We received a statement in support from Sherry Hellenbrand, Middleton Sport Bowl. She indicated her full support for granting the conditional use permits.
Excellent. Anyone who wants to speak either in favor or against it? I do not see any raised hands at this time. So if there are no takers, I'm going to close that part of the public hearing, and we are going to move on to the approval of the minutes. Need a motion to approve the Plan Commission minutes of June 28, 2022.
Slavish will make a motion for approval.
Okay, I will go ahead and second it. So, I know Chris wasn't there. So all those in favor of the motion to approve the Plan Commission minutes of June 28, 2022 to say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I guess Gretchen wasn't there either. So that will be it, Mark, right?
I'll just record the motion as having passed.
Okay, that's the good way to go. Boy, very smart thinking, Mark. Okay, all right. So we are on to the agenda item number 1. So this is about the item which we just had a public hearing. This is the conditional use permit and design review for Tricky Foods and Miggy's Bakes, 1914 and 1918 Mayflower Drive. Mark.
Yes, it's the hearing notice is quite clear as to why this hearing is why the public hearing process is required. We felt in discussing the business model with both applicants that it would be safest to go the conditional use permit route. They are mainly going to have carry-out business, but there's some indoor seating and food consumption on the premises. They also are planning to make some minor changes to the building, primarily cosmetic in nature, paint, signage, that sort of thing. And so our recommendation is that you find that the land use is compatible with the, we feel that the land use is very compatible with the site and our plans for the area. And we recommend that you grant approval of the conditional use permits. And I think I had a specific language here. Here we go. Contingent on staff approval of any minor building exterior modifications, including paint color and signage, as long as the dimensions and placement conforms with the sign code. And my guess is at least one of them is present in case you have any questions.
Okay,
Oh, there they are. I see them
Yes.
over there. They're both
Hi, I'm
present in the same
from
screen.
Turkey Foods, and this is Shelby.
I'm Shelby.
okay, need a, well, any questions or comments for Mark or the owners? Any questions or comments? So the biggest issue was the parking, I guess, and Mark, you say parking would not be an issue. There's a plenty along the roadside there, so.
Well, and I also learned after that staff comments went out that they apparently have an arrangement with that the tenants of that business of that building have some sort of arrangement with the owner to the east. But I don't think that the proposed use is really significantly different from the uses that were there, and it's never been an issue. So we don't have any concerns.
Okay, need a motion to approve. Randy?
Mark, could you put up the staff recommendation just so that I can see the language? Thank you. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval, subject to staff comments. I'm looking for that. Yeah. And staff approval of any minor building exterior modifications, including paint color and signage, as long as the dimensions and placement conform with the sign code.
And for clarification, Randy, you're saying to recommend approval. The Plan Commission has the authority to grant the permit outright. It doesn't go to the council unless it's appealed. So
thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Okay, I will go ahead and second that one. So any questions or comments now? Any questions or comments? I don't see any raised hands. I think this will make that place really look great. So I'm sure that when the staff is looking at those colors would be set up a conforming. Now there are 2-3 different colors, so which is good. So, okay, if there are no questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion for the approval of the conditional use permit and design review for Tricky Foods and Miggy's Bakes at 1914 and 1918 Mayflower Drive, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We are on to big item here, item number 2. Extraterritorial certified survey map in the town of Westport. This is Tenfold Capital LLC, Adam Non, and property south and east of Briggs Road, County Highway Q. Mark, so there has been a lot about it. Go ahead, please.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to give you a little background. So you'll recall that back in June, the Common Council approved an ordinance rezoning this property, an 8-acre property, to allow 2 single-family residences contingent on approval and recording of the certified survey map, which was approved by the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee back in April. This afternoon, yesterday, I included in the packet, provided you with the letter that we received from attorney Richard Schmidt on behalf of BBCC, which is the owner of the land on which Bishops Bay Country Club is located. The letter expressed opposition to the proposed land division and requested that the commission reject the CSM. This afternoon, I sent an email to you, and I'll just summarize what it says so that it's in the record. I reviewed the subdivision ordinance, concluding that the CSM does not constitute a subdivision pursuant to the definition in section 19.11 parentheses 32. Secondly, the CSM is reasonably consistent with the extraterritorial land division policies listed in section 19.04 parentheses D. I would note that each lot would be 2 acres in size, which is the average size of the 9 lots that are served by Briggs Road directly to the west. Those lots range from about 1 acre to 3.4 acres, I believe. The CSM would create 2 lots that are served by a private drive that traverses an outlot that is approximately 130 feet wide and abuts a public street, Highway Q. And there are numerous examples of lots that are served by a private street in the city of Middleton. And lastly, the CSM would create 2 lots that have dimensions that can easily enable construction of residences that comply with minimum setback requirements and whose 125-foot width is not unlike the adjoining 150 foot wide lot directly to the west. It's not that unlike, I should say, reasonably comparable. And then lastly, in my staff recommendation, I had recommended approval contingent on resolution engineering staff comments. I confirmed with the engineers that they have no comments, that in fact, they said the geometry of the CSM looks great. And so there's no need for any contingency of approval. So my revised staff recommendation is that you simply approve the extraterritorial CSM, period, without any contingencies. So that's my staff report.
Okay, so Mark, when I look at it, okay, thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Board, the court section 19.073, 19.076C and 6F. So, but I guess they are, but what Larry said, that probably isn't important, right?
Our attorney that's working on this matter on behalf of the city is Stephen McGaver, not Larry.
Oh,
Larry
okay.
Murphy Destin is not involved because they
Okay.
they have a conflict in this matter.
Okay.
So I'm working with another attorney who is present on the call if you have any questions.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, so how would you address their issues raised in section 19.073? Well, anyway, I don't need to quote those 3 of those points which they made in their letter.
Our position is that the CSM is compliant despite some of the concerns raised in the letter from Mr. Schmidt. While the ratios aren't the quote preferred unquote 2-to-1 ratio, the proposed 5.625 to 1 is acceptable in my position. Are there any other specific questions that you had?
That was one I have to look at this. There's just, well, you can see here what they have here. Okay, so they have 3 main points,
Right.
subdivision. Yeah, you can see those 3 points. So I just wondered if it was
The minimum,
Mhm.
yeah, the minimum frontage issue, I believe that's accounted for with the easement that abuts a public right of way as is required under the ordinance. The ratio I already addressed in the public street, again, that's also bullet point number 3, also addressed by the easement. My take is it's in compliance.
Okay, so one of the question is that it was approved by the Westport as a PDD, and then it said the conditions of approval are not met, and 3 years went by and they did not record it. So if the candidate is there, do we know that what happened? I mean, this site does not have approval now for 4 condominium units, right?
Correct.
I disagree with that, Mayor.
Okay, well, let's hear from you then.
Yeah, I'm the staff to the Planning Commission here, and Steve is supporting us in guidance, but it is my interpretation as zoning administrator that the underlying zoning, that the zoning that was previously in place The PDD zoning has remained in place since it was approved 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago. And so once the council took the action to approve the rezoning as with contingencies, once those contingencies are fulfilled, then the site it becomes zoned for the 2 single-family residences. Until those conditions are completely fulfilled, the owner, the property is still zoned as the previous zoning. I disagree with the assertion that the PDD zoning is no longer in place. That's an assertion from an adjoining property owner who
Okay,
is aggrieved by this process.
okay, so it's still PDD, and
Yes.
so just because it wasn't recorded.
Yes, and I would note that the author of the letter that you received has his hand up, but I would also add that this is not a public hearing. We had a hearing on the rezoning matter. They provided
Okay.
input at that hearing. This is not before you tonight as a hearing, but if you
Okay.
do wish to accept comment, then you should accept comment from others as well.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Schmidt. So keep it brief. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, as has been pointed out, I do represent BBCC, which owns the golf course land and is an adjacent landowner. I think there's a few things that are being overlooked here. One of the main ones being Town of Westport. They rejected the land division in May 16th. I provided a copy of the resolution 22-03. That was just this year. Second, under the prior action, and I included a copy of what happened back in 2003. And the reason that I point that out is because the position people have been taking as well, there used to be 4 units approved under PDD. This is less restrictive than that, or I'm sorry, more less onerous, I guess, than that. So we should approve it. But my point is, back in 2003, that action, it was quite clear that there were a number of conditions, and those conditions have never been satisfied. One of the conditions was a certified survey map be recorded. It was approved, but never recorded. Well, you can't wait 19 years and do it. And then third, I think just under your ordinance, I pointed out under your own ordinance a few things that don't comply. For example, 20 feet of frontage on a public right-of-way. It says frontage. It doesn't say access to. And also the excessive depth in relation to width. And 2 to 1 is what's considered desirable, and this is 2.5 times that. And then finally, every lot shall front or abut on a public street, and I don't see that here either. So for all those reasons, and we have appeared at the rezoning hearing back when that was held, so it's not as if we've been sitting idly by. For all those reasons, we ask that this division be denied.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions or comments from the commissioners now? Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay, Randy, please go ahead.
Mark, is one of the conditions of approval that staff made was to make it contingent upon Town of Westport's approval?
Yeah, I think we should treat our approval separately from Westport because we have our own jurisdiction. They have their own jurisdiction. And so that probably was not, that did not need to be a condition of approval. What I was referring to, I think in my head anyway, was that the CSM had been approved by the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee. And so we are approving it consistent with how they approved it. So that would be appropriate to approve the CS. Well, the point is the CSM that's before you is what they approved. So, but the reference to the Town of Westport is not necessary and not desirable.
And if the Town of Westport board doesn't reverse their decision, this doesn't go anywhere anyways. Is that correct? That's
not within the purview of the city. That's a separate matter that involves the applicants with the Town of Westport.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We are standalone. We have standalone authority as an extraterritorial. In our extraterritorial jurisdiction, we have our own authority. They have their own authority for land divisions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? So Mark, then your recommendation, you are changing it here. It was approved, the CSM contingent on resolution of engineering staff recommendation and approval of the CSM by the town of Westport. So that's not the recommendation now then?
My recommendation, restating what I said, is to approve the extraterritorial CSM, period.
Okay. All right, any further question? Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, need a motion to approve. Randy,
I'll make that motion to approve the extraterritorial CSM.
okay, need a second.
Slavish will second that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Randy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you look at our previous actions, this would just be consistent with what we've done to date. Both at the city level and at the joint zoning commission level has looked at this property for months now, and I think this is just consistent with the previous action. So
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you, Randy.
mhm.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, all those in favor of the motion to approve the extraterritorial certified survey map in the town of Westport, 10 Fort Capital LLC, Adamnon as agent, property south and east of Briggs Road, County Highway Q, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, all right, we on to the item number 3, which is the concept review for called mixed use development at 6556 University Avenue. Daphne,
Yes, so this is here for concept review. It is a proposal for mixed use, so an office space and possibly commercial space on the first floor with parking, and then you know, residential above. And I believe Nick Badura is with Sketchworks is here on the call as well, if you have any questions for him.
okay, so well, I looked at it extensively. It looks like it's going to bring about a big change in this area. So Nick, do you want to present give any more details other than what has been sent to the commissioners? Or so it will be west of the Walgreen, and they will still have Bunbury and Associate Realtors will be one of their tenants. They will have a second one. And I looked at their parking stalls, and they will have 59 stalls, and there will be 42 mixed use, 4-story, 42 units, mixed use. So my question will be their entrance. So now do they enter close to that, there is that roundabout, where do they enter? Where will be the entrance to this place?
This is Nick with Sketchworks Architects. So they would have both the existing drive where the existing Bunbury facility is, where, could I share my screen? Would that be okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It just says has host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, we can fix that.
Thank you.
Bring that, Daphne.
Yes.
I got it.
give me-
I got it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Okay. All right, so looking at the existing Bunbury building that will be removed, this is
Yeah.
the existing survey. The existing building as we see it
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
So this existing drive here and the drive through the roundabout will still be utilized in the new facility here. So parking along the front of the building for the commercial tenant spaces, which would be along the south end here.
Mhm.
And then down here, lowering down to the underground parking on the east side of the building. We are also exploring the idea of some underground parking extending beyond the face of the building on this north end to create some additional parking spaces for the apartment units. Here's that plan, looking at the underground parking and the extension. There would be 2 commercial tenant spaces, one occupied by the existing Bunbury office space. We're still determining exactly the configuration, but there would be 2 tenant spaces along the south end with 2 separate entries and then additional separate entry for the apartment units. Yes, we're looking at 42 units total for the building, a total of 59 parking stalls. If I could, I have 2 additional things to show since our last submittal date. One would be just kind of overlaying this site plan here on kind of how it relates in context to what's around it, adjacent buildings, to the Walgreens to the east and to the dental office on the west side. Kind of see the relationship to the street, and we're about 50 feet or so from the face of the building to the property line to the south, where my cursor is. One additional thing we wanted to show was just to get the Plan Commission to see some just early concept ideas of how the building could potentially take shape. Not to say that this is the final, but we're looking at pitched roofs, corner balconies, this being the prominent corner for tenant spaces and the entry to the building, and having defined kind of 2 entry spaces for those 2 commercial tenants along that side of the building. We're going back to the north, then these are just continuing the apartment units at grade. If there's any other questions, just let me know.
Any questions from the commissioners? Any question from the commissioners?
I have a
Any-
question.
Go ahead, please.
If you could go to that plan drawing or the site plan.
Sure.
So I was wondering what kind of distance you need to maintain between the substation and the edge of the potential parking, underground parking.
Yes. Oh, for like the underground parking?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have kind of brought that up internally, or kind of looking into kind of what that distance needs to be and how close we can get up to that. So
Have you talked to MG&E?
not yet. We have to talk to them about a couple things on that, but not at this
Okay.
point, no. But we will.
Okay, and then the other question I had was there was a bunch of comments on one of the drawings. Are those the comments from the staff, Mark?
Yes, that's correct, Chris.
Or Daphne?
So there was another one that, was the exact same site plan, but had a bunch of comments, and that's from staff
Right.
comments. Yeah.
So have those already been reviewed between the staff and?
Not
Nick?
yet. So I believe we sent those comments on like Thursday or Friday of last week. So they might have, just been able to take a look at those. But we also wanted to include them for the commissioners to take a look at as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Mike Slavish?
Yeah, I guess to follow up with Chris's comment, one of those staff comments that I was going to ask Nick, maybe ask you about, was up in that northeast or northwest corner of the site, the fire department recommends a cul-de-sac for a turning radius for a fire apparatus, which clearly this configuration would not provide for that in any way. So I was curious if you've thought about that and how you might reconfigure it. I mean, you could go with a T configuration on this. Obviously not as efficient as an L-shaped configuration, but that would be a way to potentially facilitate and accommodate that request from the fire department.
Okay. I don't know. I know Steve's also on this call with our office. I don't know, Steve, you want to chime in at all for that?
Yeah, Steve Schulfer here. So what we have been talking about, and we'll have to take this back to Matt. We have not had any conversations with Matt about this comment specifically. We did look at the hose lay distances around the building, and we would not need to exceed 150 feet on that fire apparatus distance. So our hope was to extend the fire apparatus only up as needed, which would be probably only about 50 feet at most up that west driveway, and thereby not requiring a turnaround. So that's our hope. As I said, we just got the comment and have not talked to Matt about this yet. So,
But you will talk to the fire department, right?
yes, Matt Weigel from the fire department. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ultimately, I guess that would be their call to make, not
Yeah.
necessarily planning commissions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
certainly we reviewed the comments. I don't think we took exception to anything necessarily on there. I think the fire truck access point was one that we definitely wanted to take up. And then there was a comment about reducing parking along the front of the building. And that one we took a little exception to as well, because of the commercial spaces and trying to separate commercial from residential parking on the west side. So that was another staff comment that will have to be addressed.
Okay, and I guess this would be a question for, Daphne and Mark, staff question. First of all, I support the concept here for residential housing. I think that makes sense for this site. I do recall though that when Anthony Gray brought what was formerly, the former project that is now Kestrel forward, it's almost an identical layout to this. And had pushed for 4 stories there. That was not approved, and he was forced to go with a 3-story building. Now, granted, he backed up to some residential, which I don't believe is the case here. If they're backing up entirely to this substation, so maybe that's a difference. But that would be something that I guess we need to think about. However, it does look like a 4-story structure is consistent with the University Avenue corridor plan, which came about after I know the Kestrel project was approved. So maybe that's the answer for that.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep. Thanks.
Randy Bruce.
Yes, I wanted to just follow up on a couple more of the comments that planning staff had made on the plan. That part of the University Avenue plan, the design guidelines were set to try to establish a more attractive corridor as properties get developed, and reducing the amount of parking in the front yard is certainly one of the key components to that. I know Steve and Nick, it makes for a different design solution than what you've got now, but I think that you can solve it and still provide adequate parking for both uses. But to get some building frontage on up towards the front lot line, I think would be very desirable. I also noticed that the engineering staff had talked about the 2 driveways. Right now you have 2 access points, and this property may not necessarily meet that the need for 2 access points. I was wondering whether you had looked at or could look at just using 1 access point, probably the one directly off of University Avenue, if that would give you some other solutions. And then regarding the 4 stories, you know, I would certainly be supportive of 4 stories. I would recommend, however, that you look at a flat roof rather than a pitched roof, just to help with the perceived height of the building. I think that would make a big difference. Certainly as it abuts the neighbors to the north, I think that would be helpful. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Randy. Yeah, I guess I would say 3-story versus 4-story, that is a big issue. So it went through the plan commission only recently, and where we did not, it didn't get that project, which is Castrol now, didn't get approved. So I have a question for Mark or Daphne, that what is how many stories are there, the project which is in the process of building close to the Allen Boulevard? So I don't remember the address there. Is that 3 or 4 stories?
4 stories, Mayor.
That is 4 stories. So I also understand Mike's Clavish's point that, you know, we didn't have the university corridor and also the comprehensive plan in place at that time. And the third is that there is a less of residential area there. So would there be public hearing with the neighborhood like we had in that other property, or how is it going to go? Mark or Daphne?
Yeah, so when they submit their GIP, before they do that, we generally we recommend that they have their neighborhood meeting, you know, before they come to plan commission for their GIP approval. So this is still just concept, and then, you know, they'll do the neighborhood meeting and the public hearing when they submit for their GIP.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess that will improve this area, definitely. So, and that's what we have wanted in this university corridor for a while. So any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Well, do you guys have enough input now to go back to the drawing board, and would have to work with the driveway with the Public Works Committee in any case? So, okay, so this was the providing the comments, and there's no motion. What do you need, Mark, from here?
It's up to you. You know, the feedback is, we certainly will document that in the minutes. Sometimes a motion of concept approval is considered, but it's not required and it's not binding on the Plan Commission. So it's up to you, Mayor. It's entirely the commission's prerogative.
Okay, how, Randy, Mike, and Chris, or what do you feel? Do you want to make a motion to approve the concept, or let them go back and work on it? Randy?
I guess my reaction is I'd like to have them come back with some further refinement of their design before we grant concept approval.
Okay, I think, and Mike?
Yeah, I would agree with Randy. I mean, you know,
Okay.
some of the issues are fairly substantial, not that there's not a resolution, but certainly like their team to go back and try to address some of these before they come back to the commission.
Yeah, I think I agree. There's a lot there. Well, you guys got plenty of input now, so we will work with the staff, and we will go from there.
And just to clarify, Mayor, if I may, just to clarify, they're not required to come back for concept. This is an optional step. So unless you're asking them to come back.
No,
Okay.
no, I'm not asking them. So.
And they may wish to come back for concept approval,
Okay.
but they may also take the feedback and just simply apply for the rezoning. So
Okay,
that's up to
okay,
them.
all right. Okay. And
Steve Pfeffer, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, thank you for the feedback and the comments. Just wanted to bring up the point that there's existing City of Middleton property directly in front of this, and I'm wondering how that comes into play with, particularly with regards to the right-of-way and utilities and stormwater, which we will work out with engineering. But then that parlays into having parking as well and access through that cul-de-sac in front of Walgreens. So I'm only bringing that up because as we explored some options, I think that was a big discussion point with regards to building placement. We will certainly come back and explore other options. I think, Randy, your points are well taken. We'll certainly take a look and then report back and work with staff on this one. So,
May I quickly respond to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Steve, we have a similar situation happened with the Broad Branch where there was some surplus right-of-way at the corner of Branch and Century. And so whether a right-of-way can be dispensed with to, sold to the adjoining property owner depends on underlying utilities, what the purpose of retaining the right-of-way is. I mean, if there's underlying utilities, then, then reuse of the right-of-way probably is not feasible, but that's something we can discuss with Public Works.
okay. Yeah, that's always been a question in our mind as to what we could do with that. So great. We'll take that offline. Thank you.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. And I remember that their property buying that rights from Dane County. Thank you, Mark. Okay, well, you have plenty of input, Steve, to work on now. So we move on to item number 4. This is the specific implementation plan SIP modification for signage, the Little Gym, 1920 Cayuga Street. Mark?
Yes, hello. Good evening.
So what I was simply going to say for staff comments is that, and I've lost track of my stuff here there. So we have a request from the new owner of the Little Gym, who's on the call, Matt Doris, and he wants to add some graphics to the windows to enhance privacy and safety, promote energy efficiency, and screen view of the patio seating from the inside. We flagged for him that we have our sign code allows ground floor window area to be covered, up to 20% of it can be covered with permanent signage. There is some latitude with PDD zoning to deviate from our standards, as we all know. They also are reluctant to commit to coming up with a detailed plan with graphics until they know that they have the support of the commission. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here and I'm sure has some comments and I would like to have the opportunity to speak.
Okay, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you everyone for taking time tonight. Yeah, so we requesting, obviously these window coverings. One of the questions that came up in the emails between Mark and I was what has changed and why would we need this? One of the things was that, energy efficiency, it is extremely hot in there when you have 20, 25 little bodies running around. So we have to crank the air conditioning way down. So we're trying to reduce that cost. Also, the restaurant that moved in next door has patio seating and we are watching gentlemen smoke. We are watching people walk by, all kinds of things that we, feel for the privacy of the kids, they shouldn't be seeing. And, talking about that 20% guideline, when we look at windows, Mark, do you have the pictures that I sent you of the face of our property? Yes. So that top piece is opaque, the top section. So no coverings would go at that top of those sections. And these coverings would only go on the bottom section or the middle section of whatever you want to call it of the gym. So in the bottom picture, if you go, Mark, if you scroll down just a little bit, this is I believe this is the lobby. I can't tell with that picture, but on the other side, there's a lobby window. Nothing would be covered on the lobby side. This is purely for the gym area. So yeah, and like Mark said, it was several $100s, I think, actually, for the design we were looking for, or the layouts, to get a concept review from them. But in the brochures, there's options of what we can choose, so we can't deviate from it. So basically it would show everything that was possible for that to have happened. If we don't have that brochure, I thought, Mark, I sent that to you, but I could screen share that as well, or send that on as well.
If you'd like to screen share it, I didn't put it in there because it was mainly promotional marketing.
It's mainly promotional, but this will kind of show the, yeah, exactly.
So-
It's, let me pull that over.
I didn't think it added value for the Plan Commission's
Sure.
consideration.
So this will give them an idea of what we're looking for here. And this is purely just like that, like you said, the promotional, piece of that.
We're seeing Northwest Mutual, just so you know.
Yep, I know. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to load up there. I'm not promoting that tonight. Don't worry. So that's the other job. All right. So it's a download. There we go. Okay. The large file. Just in this moment. Okay. So throughout all this, as Mark said, most of it's not relevant. But when you get to, this is where we would select, what we could do. And these are not solid colors or solid where we are not able to see out, but it gives us the privacy from people seeing in. So it's typical of some other things in the area. I saw one community bank. I think that's the one around the corner. They have some signage that's, completely where you can't see in as well. So it was similar to that as far as that style. And they had their upper windows, uncovered as well. But this would be some of the things of kids. And then, you go through and you select, and then let me know if anyone needs me to stop. So basically anything that can be selected is within this brochure, and we cannot deviate from that. So because it's a vendor choice, through our corporate office.
Okay, any questions or comments from the commissioners now? And Gretchen?
Yeah, so if we're looking at creating privacy and screening, why is the option for the signage more desirable than an option for, say, white translucent covering?
One is the trees that are in the area. Another one of the questions was what has changed in the last 17 years since we took it over from, Bob and Cindy Jors, is all the trees and foliage in that area, whether it be street and or within our parking lot, is obviously much larger than what it was 20 years ago. So those signs, especially our signs, are not visible anymore from the road. So we're trying to get, obviously attract people to know, again, where we are at, not have to, drive around, look to that sign that's, up above. Because even if those trees were cut back, it's still the height of those trees are covering or obstructing our sign.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, need a motion to approve?
And what are we, again, we're approving for, we're asking for more than that 20%, number. If we can get that deviated from, we can work within that window, within those windows for the gym, but 20% is not going to be desirable for, based on the safety of the kids and the energy efficiency we were looking for.
What percentage are you looking to cover then?
Mark, can you go, I'll stop my share. Can you go back to the window, the picture of our windows, please? So within that window, because again, that upper area is completely see-through. It's opaque, but it's essentially clear up on top. We are not going to cover any of that. So if we're looking at that as a percentage, we're looking somewhere, that would be what, 2/3 of it, of that bottom window. So we're looking
to cover the entire bottom window, in other words.
Bottom window of that section. And it would just be that on that side, and then on the other side, which is the gym, that's part of the gym too. So 4 of the, 6 to 8 windows that we have that are large, that's what we've been looking for.
So definitely, Mark, do you know how much that area would be, and have we done for others, and does that make sense to you?
Well, I don't know what percent, if they're covering the entirety of the bottom window, which is about 2/3 of the ground floor window area, I would say that's, 65 to 70%. The reason why we are flagging this for you is because There are some examples of commercial businesses around town that where they have windows, which are a great design element for the building, and then they get covered up with white translucent or material or something sort. Takura around the corner from here is a prime example of that. There's an example in Middleton Hills where a business put up signs that we then, or graphics, I should say, not signs, which it contains some signs, but so we just have become more sensitive to, I think as the city has required more windows as part of to create a pedestrian scale environment, what's happened is tenants have at times felt the need to cover some of those up to use their space inside the tenant space differently than maybe what the windows would otherwise allow. So we flag this because it is a design matter, and when signage becomes part of it, that makes it obviously even more noticeable. And so that's why it's before you tonight. It is
like I
on
said,
PDD. It is on PDD, so you have the discretion to consider case-by-case situations. I wasn't aware of the one community bank situation that which Matt referred. I don't have a photo of that, but
I do. We took a photo the other night, so it would look pretty similar to that window on the left, where they have covered windows 1 and 2, but left I'm sorry, they covered windows 3 and 4, but kept the top 2 windows open. So it's very similar to that.
And I want to emphasize, it's not that we're opposed to this at the staff level. We just feel that it's a design component of the building.
Absolutely. And we're looking at it from a safety piece. Who's to say, like we said, what's changed is the men smoking, and I have pictures of that, it's unacceptable. And we're trying to play nice with the owner next door. And we don't feel it's something the kids should see, but it's a privacy for kids.
Yeah, I think those 2 points, privacy and safety, is very important. And I think I agree with you, Matt. So other questions or comments from the commissioners? Otherwise, need a motion to, okay, Mike and then Gretchen.
Yeah, Mark, just a question. So the 20% that we're talking about, is that in reference to all the glass that we see here? Because realistically, if you were just addressing these 2 panels to the left of the door that we're talking about, and another question for Matt would be, if you're trying to do some screening, we get that. You certainly wouldn't have to go up all the way on those glass panels. You could go up 6 feet, which is going to put you about a foot maybe below the door, right up to the door line, and that's going to provide all the screening you would need.
It's the sun if you're in that gym between 8 a.m. and let's call it 1 p.m. the sun comes directly down through that area, which I agree we could possibly talk about that as far as a reduction in size, but if you're going to do it and make it look appealing, I wouldn't want to cut it off with the glass up on top.
I think to get at your question, Mike, we have had this balance of what is signage versus what is graphics or a design element. One of my favorite examples that I like to use, which doesn't exist anymore, but I always thought it was a good example. The former Middleton Cycle Shop, which is now Wheel and Sprocket, used to have a big bicycle that was integrated into the building.
Yeah.
And obviously that conveyed what the use was, but it was a design, we ended up not counting that as signage because it wasn't text, it was design element. And so that balance of what's graphics or design component of the building versus what's signage, our code specifically states when a sign is painted on or otherwise attached or applied to the window area in a permanent manner, then such sign shall be included in the total allowable wall sign area for the building and shall not exceed 20% of the total ground floor window area of the building, excluding the door windows.
So Mark, does that go to his question? Because that was a question that Jackie and I had. Are we looking at all the windows combined or each window panel?
I would say the window, and I'd be comfortable calling it the windows in totality for the ground.
Then we would be under, if you looked at it like that, then we would be far under that percentage, because again, the lobby, that's a large window, the one that's on the other side there. The lobby ones, I think this is similar what's on the other side. we'd be well with under those limits as far as percentage wise.
Okay, so Mike, you have more
Yeah,
questions?
so Matt, are you saying you would be under the 20, you'd be at or under
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
50% in total?
I think we would be more under, because we're looking at the windows of the entire, from the gym all the way over through the lobby, piece. I think we'd be closer to, 50% total, 50 to 60% total of all the windows, if we're looking at it as one big, window piece, essentially. Because that was a question we had. We weren't sure, it was probably your question, Mike, too, is how are we looking at this as a window pane? Or are we looking at it as a, as the windows in totality?
One question is, why wouldn't you consider shades or curtains or something like that as an option?
Yep, kids jump around, and kids knock things down. Kids can choke, all those things. Yeah, we discussed that too, and it was my former life. I was a teacher and assistant principal in Chicago public schools, so we did not have shades or curtains in rooms. We had window coverings similar to this kind of stuff.
Mike, you have more questions or?
No, that's it, Mayor.
Okay. Gretchen, and I know Chris, you had some questions. Gretchen, and then maybe Chris, if you still have some questions. Gretchen?
Sure. So just looking at some basic maths here, 60% of 50% of the windows is about 30% being covered. And then citing the code that was mentioned before, if these aren't permanently applied graphics, then it sounds like they're not even considered in the signage total. So maybe that needs clarification. And then the third comment, I guess, is I appreciate as a parent having kids screened generally from adult view. Kids see what they see, but shielding the kids from adult view is perhaps more of a safety issue in my perspective as a parent. I'm not sure how comfortable I feel about going over the 20% of signage. I guess it depends how the city feels about whether it's graphics or signage. It does seem like there's other ways of using some white opacity just to simply screen without it exceeding the signage requirement. So I'd be interested to hear how the city feels about the graphic versus signage. Thank you.
So the one,
Go ahead, Mark.
so the one other provision of our sign code after permanent signs, it talks about temporary signs on windows. Signs advertising sales and specials shall not exceed 30% of the total ground floor window area of any building, excluding the door windows. So the way I've always understood that is you take the 20% that's permanent and you can have an additional 30% for a total of 50%. So that means at least 50% of the windows to remain clear. Again, I'm sure we can all think of examples around the city where there's adornments on windows, that might challenge some of the measurements here. But the main concern we have is the signage, graphics, and obviously most businesses I know, probably all businesses, want to attract customers and want to have a respectable appearance. They want to appeal to, so they're not going to, I'm sure that Mr. Doris doesn't want to do anything that detracts from the business. So I think that's not the issue before us here. It's the amount of signage, the lettering, and just making sure that we're aware of the design changes. And we felt that that was something that fell in the purview of the Plan Commission.
And Mark, would it fall, because you use that example of the Middleton bike shop there, because we're having pictures of the kids, you saw some of the examples within that brochure. Would it fall under that kind of understanding that, this makes it clear what the use of this building is, like that? It's showing exactly what's happening within there, just as a bike, which would symbolize, what's happening over at that wheel and sprocket.
Design is it's kind of a subjective thing, right? So there are different ways to incorporate design into the building appearance, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm not an architect.
Sure.
My questions of style probably have never been held up as a high standard. So,
Chris, you have any questions, or you're okay?
Mark asked my question. I was going to ask about the blinds as well.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Randy Bruce?
Mark, or could you show one of the pictures of the front of the building for us? Yeah. So one thing I just was wondering is if might be a reasonable compromise would be, rather than take up all of the lower 2/3 of that window, whether we just went from the sill of the window up to the head of the door height, right where their cursor is, which would obstruct the view in and out, would give you some ability to get some graphics, so people knew what you were looking at, but would greatly reduce the percentages and get it more in line with what is typically approved.
Thank you, Randy. So Mark or Daphne, so how did we approve that one community bank? If their windows are covered, why wouldn't here? So I mean, if they have it, they should too.
I haven't reviewed One Community Bank's original application or how they implemented their, how they carried out their space. So we'd have to go check on that. I don't know, Mayor, but yes, consistency is always obviously a concern.
Okay. Well, I think the privacy and safety of the kids is very important, and energy efficiency is fine, but I think the privacy and safety, those are two very important, as Gretchen and the others have said too. So, and I would say if it's, a little bit higher than 20, but 20 is the part of the whole building, or just only the windows. I mean, when you look at 20% Daphne, Mark, is it just only 20% of the windows or the whole frontage?
So of the windows, and it's again specifically for signage. The concept of design of graphics is separate, potentially separate from signage. So again, I'm leaving it to you to have the discussion among the Planning Commission what you consider appropriate from a design standpoint.
Okay, Gretchen and then Mike Slavish.
I guess one final comment on graphics versus design, in my opinion. When we looked at the brochure that was uploaded, that was much more images of children doing what they would be doing in the gym, which would look like what was happening behind the windows, which in my mind would be graphics. But when we looked at the what was submitted to the Planning Commission and the agenda, that was a lot of words, and to me that's signage. So I would like to see that perhaps minimized to the 20% for my approval.
Okay, thank you, Gretchen. Mike Slavish.
Mike, you're muted.
Mike Slavish.
Yep, got it. Sorry about that.
But no, that's fine. That gives us time to think, Mike. So that's good.
So again, I would, just to add to Gretchen's comments, I would agree with what she said. And if you look at these two images, so if you limit the graphics with the signage or the verbiage to one of the panels, and you did simply graphics, say on the two panels on the left, could we in essence, because that panel just to the left of the door there, if it's only that panel that has graphics and signage, I'm guessing in totality, that's probably at that 20% level, ish. And that for privacy's sake, to Gretchen and Mayor, your point earlier about privacy, we allow the graphics to fulfill that very need on the two panels on the left. And I guess I would, in light of that, I will make a recommendation along those lines just to further this discussion along.
Okay, need a second.
I second that, Gretchen.
Okay, all right. Any further questions or comments? So, and also work with the staff, so I think, and the staff will also look at the One Community Bank. We have to be fair to everyone.
Yep.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion for the SIP modification for signage for the Little Gym 1920 Cayuga Street, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, guys, well, staff and Matt worked with them, so excellent.
Okay, thank you very much.
So
You got a
words
great,
can't be more than 20%, but
That's what I was going to ask. So wording within those windows, no more than 20% of the area of the window, which I don't think it was going to be anyway.
But keep in mind, the issue is you can't cover more than 20% of the window, but you can't, the sign is also included the total allowable wall area, sign area for the building. That's part of the ordinance as well. So that's why I was going to ask for clarity before you voted.
Maybe I'm confused too, because I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing we can put graphics in there, but within those graphics, and maybe I'm not understanding that correctly, whether it's within the graphics or separate, it cannot total more than 20%.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
20% of the signage, but your graphics, I guess, could be more. So Randy, you had some question?
No, not about this item, no.
Okay, all right. Yeah, well, work with the staff, and I'm sure, Matt, they can clarify you, but I think we need a solution where we are, number one, consistent. We can't have one building right next to it having covered up and not these guys have similar privilege. So, all right.
Yeah,
So,
and Mark, just to clarify, I think what I was intending. So again, this image here, that panel just to the left of the door, if that panel has graphics and signage, the entire panel would constitute signage per our definition or per the ordinance, versus the piece to the left, those two panels to the left, if it's just graphics with no verbiage, that would not fall under the definition of signage. That's what my motion represented. Again, I'm not sure, Gretchen, if that's what you were seconding, but
That is what I was seconding.
Okay, that's what
Yeah.
my intent was.
okay.
Does that help, Mark?
I think I'm actually a little bit more confused now.
I think I am too.
So, Commissioner, or was that Mike who said that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying that that the next to the window, next to the doorway, excuse me, the panel next to the doorway, that if
Yep.
they have lettering on that, then you're saying that your intent was to count the entire graphic with the lettering against that 20%. That's what I thought I just heard you say. Whereas
I think that's what I was saying.
That is what he's saying. So,
Versus a graphic to the left of that has no verbiage, and that is there to kind of enhance the privacy. If there's no signage on it, that
Right.
would not fall under the 20% definition.
My concern, let's say that you have a similar graphic, similar image of a child at play or whatever the image they end up choosing across all three of these windows. But then the one on the right happens to have a portion of that graphic be signage. I guess I would, thank you. That's a good example.
This might help. Okay, so like that
Can you zoom
particular
in
window,
a little bit? Jeff?
That would be signage.
But
and that would count towards the 20%.
that clearly
but the
is.
other three would not count towards that.
Yeah, but if you scroll down, there was another example that I think, so there's an example, perfect example, bottom rightmost panel. It says the little gem. Would you count that as the entire window then
this is not an apples to apples comparison. I mean, you've got a 4-foot section of brick that separates these two panels. This is not like a continuous graphic. I would, again, we're kind of getting into the detail here, but I would think if you have two separate graphics, one with verbiage, one without, the one with verbiage would count toward as the signage.
I agree with that, but I'm saying if you take that panel where the little gem is printed, the little gem takes up, less than half of that panel. That's why I'm not sure I would count that whole area as signage. That's why I was having, and I'm sorry to be so detailed at this meeting. I think it's helpful to have this discussion because we'll actually form our new zoning ordinance too. This is the sort of stuff that we want to iron.
Yeah, I think, Mark, it's what you're comfortable with. I was trying to, be, I thought, conservative and saying, if there's a graphic and it has a small amount of verbiage on there, the entire graphic would count as signage. if you're saying that,
I would rather box out the lettering and use our
Fine.
ordinance that way and say, let's take 8 lines, which is how our ordinance defines signage, and I would box that out. I would be more comfortable with that in terms of consistency and.
I'm more than happy to make that amendment to my motion, if
So-
that would
so-
make you more comfortable.
That was
So-
actually how I understood your motion to begin with, so I will just.
Okay.
So could I understand, so if let's use this for an apples to apples comparison, that graphic on the far bottom there, if we put that graphic up, is that within limits? Is that within what we're approving here today? I'm still very confused.
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
that's what's been approved.
okay,
that
thank you.
concept. I'll work with you about it.
You gave me
I'll work-
pictures, that helps. Yeah,
I have
so,
enough after this meeting. We spent a lot of time on this. I have enough direction. I can work
Okay.
with you on this later this.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
okay,
you.
Great.
we got a great staff here, Matt, so you can work with them. I think, well, they got plenty of input. Okay, we are at item number 5. This is the specific implementation plan modification for design review changes for T5 real estate for former Captain Bell site at 6100 Lake Street.
Mayor,
Abby is not there, so you're going to take it, Mark?
Right. Well, I think Commissioner Bruce is about to say what I was going to announce. Randy, if you
All
want to.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
Commissioner Bruce.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to recuse myself from this item.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think the main thing from the staff notes is the reduction in the parking. The other thing seems
Yeah. So-
not as major. Well, maybe we should ask Chris here. He's the new commissioner here, if he wants to start with some input or anything.
Mayor, I was just going to give a quick staff report if I may.
Yes, go ahead
Our
and give a
usual-
quick
our
staff
usual
report,
custom.
Mark, and
Yeah.
then the commissioners. Go ahead.
Sure. So the application is before you tonight as a SIP modification for 3 reasons. They're proposing 3 changes. One is to reduce the underground parking outside of the building footprint by incorporating 15 tandem parking stalls. And Abby did the staff review on this, and she considers the tandem stall to be essentially functioning as one stall. And even if that happens, they would still end up with 98 stalls for 65 units, which is well above the 1-to-1 ratio, the standard that is now commonly used in the Madison area. So that's our first comment, the first change. The second change is they are revising exterior building materials by using a different type of brick and replacing the metal panels with hardy plank or hardy lath. And that's siding, and it's my understanding, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding it's similar to material that's used on the Trotta. And then the third change is they're adjusting the grading along Lake Street by lowering the ground elevation, which then would reduce the exposure of the basement level and the amount of masonry. Those are the changes, and we have considered that to be a minor SIP modification, but that's up to the Planning Commission to make that determination.
Okay, let the commissioners' questions or comments begin. Please raise your hands. Okay, Chris, go ahead. Chris and then Mike Slavish.
I guess as just a general comment, I didn't see any issues with what they were asking for in terms of changes. It seemed fairly minor. I did wonder though, I don't know if anyone's here to speak to this, about the grading change. I was trying to understand what the grading change, it said to reduce the amount of masonry.
Tim, Carey, or anyone else who want to speak?
Mayor, I can speak to that one. This is Dwayne Johnson with Canothe and
Okay,
Bruce.
okay, go ahead. Dwayne.
That's not showing well on this rendering, but basically
Right.
along this street elevation, we're raising the grading, tipping it up and reducing the masonry. So there'd be a bit of a mound or dirt piled up higher along that elevation to reduce the masonry and raise the grade.
So does that show up on your elevations?
It does on the elevations, but not on that rendering.
You're not adjusting the height of the where the floor of the building is constructed, in other words, that is
Correct.
staying the same. Okay, that was the
Correct.
question I had too. I had misunderstood that. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, actually, this was exactly the same thing. I also didn't understand why that was important. But I guess it changed the cost, I suppose. So Chris, you have further questions or you're okay?
No, that was the main question.
Mike Slavish, if you still want to ask something.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I was just saying, consistent with staff's recommendations, I support these changes. They appear minor enough. That's still ample parking for development of this size, I believe, that ratio. So I support the changes that are being proposed.
Thank you. Gretchen?
Just curious if the change in grading is affecting our surface water flow and if that needs to go before engineering again.
I don't believe it is. It was always sloping away from the building. We've just raised that and there's substantial landscape within that area. And it was really more aesthetic in nature. And we were coming in for the minor alteration and we decided to also mention that one.
Yeah, and our engineers had a brief look at it and they didn't really see any issues. So our stormwater engineer and our public works, Sean Stowski, the director, he took a brief look at it and they both did not have any issues with the grading change.
Okay, well, that's good. Any commissioners have any other questions? Otherwise, you need a motion to approve.
Slavish will make a motion to recommend approval as a minor SIP modification.
Need a second?
Harp will second.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Emily Kuhn, I suppose.
Hi, this is
Emily, yes, go ahead.
this is Emily. I just wanted to say thank you to the developer for providing the updates. I really appreciate it, even though the parking is going down, it's still reasonable at the plus 30 parking. There are concerns on the social media. However, you've already spoken to them, and I just want to say thank you for keeping us posted, and we look forward to your development.
Thank you, Alder Emily Kuhn. So any further questions or comments? I think I agree with Emily and the others that even the loss of few of those parking lots really doesn't impact that much. We still got 98 or so parking spots. And I'm glad that our stormwater folks think that the grading doesn't affect that. So, okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the recommendation of planning staff for approval of the, well, let's see. So all in favor of the motion to approve the specific implementation plan modification for design review changes for T5 real estate for former Captain Bill site at 6100 Lake Street, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So there is a one abstention. So, okay, so well, it's approved. So we don't have any further items here. Now need a motion to adjourn. Okay.
Erdman
well,
Herman moved to adjourn.
Okay, need a second.
Chris, this is your chance.
Harp
Okay.
seconds.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, have a great evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks,
Nice
everyone.
meeting you all.